Hi, my name's Alan Brown. I'm a professor in digital economy at the University of Exeter Business School, and I'm a director of an academic consulting company called Unities. And I'd like to talk a little bit in this section about the 5 key dilemmas that I think leaders will face around digital transformation. Digital transformation's now been part of our lives for the last few years, and I think many organizations are already quite a way along the use of digital technologies to drive efficiency and to look for new ways to grow their business through new digital business models. But I think 5 key dilemmas are going to face leaders in these times of digital transformation, particularly in the current environment that we're in. The first, I think, is around productivity. Digital technology has been sold on the idea that we'll increase and support and drive productivity in the workplace. But if we look at the numbers over the last few years, in fact, the productivity in the UK in particular has been flat and in some cases has gone down. So with the introduction of digital technology, it's quite important that we ask the question why. Why is productivity not increasing? Particularly if we're introducing automation, we're moving from manual techniques to automated techniques, we're removing a lot of the bottlenecks. Why isn't productivity improving? And I think we can see 3 or 4 different possibilities. One perhaps is that we're not measuring productivity in a way that's appropriate for a digital era. So what are the new ways we should measure productivity for a digital workplace? Perhaps there's a lag. Perhaps the digital transformation activities will show an improvement, but not yet. In which case, when? And what can we do to ensure we have patience in how we drive some of the change? And perhaps in the third case, perhaps the whole idea of measuring productivity in the way that we do in a digital environment doesn't make sense anymore. Maybe we should be looking at other ways that we look at the kind of value that's delivered as a result of moving to digital technologies. So first dilemma is, what do we do about productivity and how do we understand the investments we make in digital technology, digital transformation in relationship to productivity? The second is moving on to that idea of value. There's a value dilemma. And the value dilemma is the way in which we've looked at, delivered, supported, managed value in traditional businesses does not well transpose across to a digital world. If we think of value as creating things, selling those things to somebody, receiving payment in exchange for passing over a good or a service. In fact, in a digital world, the idea of value is it's a value in use. The value comes when somebody uses the goods or the services that we provide, not when I sell them it. And in fact, people want to delay the payment for that value until they receive it. That's why we see subscription pricing. That's why we see outcome-based pricing. That's why we see other sorts of schemes that are based on delivery of value and then receipt of some sort of compensation for that value as we see the goods and services being used. And in fact, in different situations, in different usage models, we receive different amounts of value. So how do we understand that? How do we measure that? How do we move our organizations from a value in exchange to a value in use model? That's particularly difficult for organizations right now. The third area is about the ethical dilemma. The ethical dilemma is that as we start to introduce digital technologies, we want to customize, we want to personalize how we serve and support customers and clients and stakeholders as a result of what we're learning about them, about their use, about their behaviors. But we have an ethical dilemma. The more we want to customize and personalize, the more we need to know about you, which means that we're eroding your privacy. We're perhaps even eroding your sense of self and identity. So how do we balance this interesting ethical dilemma between personalization and privacy? That's one of many challenges right now in the ethical domain that leaders in a digital transformation world are facing. The fourth area is about leadership. How do leaders lead in a digital world when we're using data much more, for example, in order to drive decision-making, when we're trying to diversify and to move decision-making across the organization from a hierarchical top-down view into a much more distributed view? So what's the role of leadership? If I'm not making decisions, if I'm not using my experience to make decisions, I'm using data, I'm using other people, I'm using diverse, self-directed teams in order to build and deliver the value that the organization's created. What's the role of leadership? How do we organize? How do we manage? How do we manage decisions in that distributed way? And finally, the fifth dilemma that I think leaders will face is about the human issues. The human dilemma is we're putting more and more stress on our individuals, on our teams, on our workforces, on our families, as we're connected all of the time, as we're trying to deliver 24/7, as we're being agile, as we're being flexible, as we're told to communicate and collaborate in new ways. And that stress is having an impact. Mental health issues, absenteeism, motivation and connectivity to the work. People are struggling right now in an individual level and a team level, and that's having an impact on the organizational level. We have to work out how we can manage this move towards a more automated digital workplace and understand its relationship to individuals, teams, and our lives in general. So they're the 5 dilemmas I think we're going to face. I hope that stimulated some thinking, and let's continue the conversation.